Let's do a course overview of the United Airlines New York City Half Marathon. Hi, I'm Susie. I'm a running coach. I ran this race last year and it was really fun, but it's definitely not the easiest course by any means. I'm going to break the course down into 4 sections and share some advice on how to best tackle each section. One thing to know about this course is that it has changed over the years. So if you ran prior to 2025, the course was different. Now, they just released the 2026 course just recently in February, and as far as I can tell, it looks very, very similar to last year. I can't see any major differences, and you go over the Brooklyn Bridge the same way as last year. So if you ran prior to 2025, I would definitely take some time to look at the map and just kind of get familiar with the changes. So the first section is miles 1 through 4. My main takeaway from these miles was that they were pretty chaotic. They're very hilly, and there are a lot of sharp turns. So it's really hard to settle into a pace because you're constantly going up and down. So my advice for this section is don't worry so much about your pace and just run by effort and focus on conserving energy. I don't want you to waste a ton of energy trying to hit your goal pace when you're going uphill. And I also don't want you to go way too fast on the downhills. Mile 1, you kind of go down, up, down. Mile 2 is mostly uphill. Mile 3 is a massive downhill. And then mile 4 is almost flat-ish, so you get a little bit of relief in mile 4. It felt like everyone around me was going really fast, and at one of the downhills I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going way too fast right now. Start conservatively and run by effort. The next section is miles 5 and 6, which is essentially the Brooklyn Bridge. So the bridge is a big hill. If you've never done a New York race before, I think it's surprising how big of a hill the bridges actually are. So basically going from mile 4 to 5 is a straight uphill going up the bridge, and then you come back down the other side. It's a big hill and there aren't a lot of spectators, so it's very quiet. So just be mentally prepared for that. And I remember last year I was hoping to get some great views from the bridge, but it was so foggy that we couldn't see anything. Obviously that's weather dependent, but just keep that in mind. The bridge is cool, but it's also tough. All right, the next stretch of the course is mile 6 through about 9.5. This section is nice because it's finally pretty flat. So compared to the chaotic up and down, left, right, first few miles, this is pretty much mostly straight and flat. So the good news is at this point, I think you can really just settle into your pace and just kind of try to tick off the miles right at goal pace. The downside is that these miles were also very quiet. There weren't a lot of spectators, so you're running along the water and there just wasn't much to see and weren't many people around. Again, that could have been because of the fog. Maybe you'll have a great view, but there wasn't really anything going on for these miles. So again, good time to settle into your pace, but it's also a good time to listen to music and really lean into the music if you have that. You could also find people around you and try to run with them if that helps you. The last section of the course that I have is mile 9.5-ish to the finish. So around mile 9.5, you're gonna make a left turn onto 42nd Street. There is a pretty steep uphill before mile 10. Now it's not as big as the hills in the earlier miles or as the bridge, so that's good, but because of where it is in the race and because you just did a nice long flat stretch, that hill could feel pretty tough. So just know that that's there and prepare for it. And then really from then to the finish, it's going to be rolling hills the whole way. So there's not really any more flat stretches. It's just kind of a constant gentle up and down. So the hills aren't as big, but they're there. The good news though is that when you make that left turn onto 42nd Street, that's where it gets really loud again. So from really mile 10 to the finish, it's going to be super loud, super high energy, tons of people cheering. So this is where you might not need your music as much. You can really lean on the crowds and let them carry you to the finish line. Remember that when you enter Central Park, you're not done yet. I think you enter the park around mile 11.5-ish, which means you still have a mile and a half left to go. And I remember thinking the Central Park portion felt so long. I was like, where is this finish line? So know that, again, you have 1.5 hilly miles still to go when you enter the park. But at this point, if you have any energy left, just send it because you're only a mile and a half to go. And finally, in one last cruel twist, the finish line is actually uphill. So there's not really any advice for that other than know that it's there and you can kind of mentally prepare for it, but just don't give up and fight. You're almost there. After that, you can rest. And one more tip just kind of for after the race is I would prepare ahead of time and have a planned meetup spot where you're going to find your friends and family. It's just a lot of people. New York is very big and cell service can be spotty in the finish area with so many people. So I would just have that planned out ahead of time. All right, so that's my main advice for the course. But if you have any other questions about the race in general, feel free to comment below. I'd be happy to answer. And if you're running, good luck and have fun. Also, just wanted to mention that I really appreciate the shirt. This is the women's fit one and it's not a V-neck. Imagine that, crazy.